Around 1750 BC, the urbanized Indus Valley civilization collapsed. The precise reasons remain debated, but the network of heavily planned, brick-built cities largely dissolved. What replaced it was a different social structure. A rural, patriarchal society known as the Vedic civilization took root across the subcontinent. Looking at this timeline of the ancient subcontinent, we see the Indus Valley block fade out by 1500 BC, replaced by a distinct 900-year span, the Vedic period. To understand this era, we must split it into two distinct halves. The first is the early, or Rig-Vedic period, running from 1500 to 1000 BC, an era defined by nomadic pastoralism. The second is the later Vedic period, from 1000 to 600 BC, driven by the use of iron and settled agriculture. The people who built this civilization are commonly called the Aryans. Arya is a Sanskrit linguistic term that appears 36 times in ancient texts. It simply translates to noble or superior. It was never used as a racial identifier. To comprehend this entire 900-year epoch, we need to track exactly how these people evolved from semi-nomadic pastoralists into settled, iron-wielding agriculturalists. The geographic origin of the Aryans has been heavily debated. The prevailing consensus, championed by scholar Max Mueller, places their starting point in Central Asia. Other scholars propose different starting lines. Bal Gangadhar Tilak argued that the Aryans migrated all the way from the extreme northern Arctic regions. Meanwhile, Swami Dayanand Saraswati theorized an origin point much closer to the subcontinent, specifically pointing to Tibet. Regardless of exactly where their migration began, the archaeological and textual evidence shows they first arrived and settled in the regions of modern-day Afghanistan and the Punjab. Ultimately, the historical weight of the Aryans lies in the linguistic and social framework they established across the subcontinent upon their arrival. During the early Vedic period, society was primarily rural, heavily patriarchal, and built around animal husbandry. The economy and culture revolved almost exclusively around cattle. The cow held absolute supremacy as a primary measure of wealth, designated in their texts as aganya, a strict classification meaning not to be killed. While the cow held sacred status, the horse was their primary animal for daily utility, providing the speed and mobility required for a semi-nomadic lifestyle. This map overlays ancient river names onto the modern Punjab and Afghanistan borders. The Indus is most frequently mentioned, while the Saraswati was revered as holiest. This network hosted the famous Battle of 10 Kings, fought on the Parashni River. Every aspect of their early survival strategies and tribal warfare was dictated by the need for prime grazing land and access to these vital waterways. Our knowledge comes from the Rig Veda, the foundational text read by scholars known as Hatri. This massive oral tradition is meticulously organized into 10 major books called mandalas, containing 1,028 chapters and exactly 10,462 individual hymns. Specific books served distinct purposes. The third mandala contains the Gayatri Mantra, a deeply revered verse dedicated to the goddess Savitri. By the 10th mandala, we see the earliest origins of the Varna system, which divided society into 4 occupational tiers, including the first textual mention of the Shudra class. This diagram visualizes their administrative scaling. Society started at the Kula, or family unit, in the center. Families formed a grama, which merged into a Visha. Clans formed a Jana, and the highest collective unit was the Rashtra, or nation. Their theology was a reflection of a mobile lifestyle. The supreme deity was Indra, also known as Purandar, the god of both war and rain. He was supported by a pantheon of specialized nature deities, Agni for fire, Varun for the wind, Soma representing the forest, and Marut controlling the storms. Relying heavily on the oral traditions encoded in the Rig Veda, this early Aryan society operated as a nature-dependent organism, constantly adapting to the elements and the demands of their herds. Around 1000 BC, the Aryans discovered iron. Referred to as Shamya Ayas or Krishna Ayas, it provided the physical leverage to reshape their environment. The preceding Indus Valley civilization had built their cities using softer metals like bronze and copper. Iron offered unmatched durability and edge retention. Specifically, Iron allowed for the manufacture of heavy axes capable of clearing deep, dense forests and heavy-duty plows that could turn over hard, stubborn soil. Armed with these tools, society shifted. The population stopped wandering to graze cattle and anchored themselves to specific plots of land to practice large-scale agriculture. Their theology immediately mirrored this new, grounded reality. The warrior god Indra lost his supreme status, replaced by Prajapati, the creator deity, reflecting a society focused on growth and stability. The social structure hardened alongside their settlements. The fluid, occupation-based Varna system of the early period locked into place, now determined by birth rather than skill. The mastery of iron moved the Aryans from wandering tribal herdsmen into the founders of permanent territorial kingdoms. As society settled, it required new instruction manuals. Looking at this textual strata diagram, the Rig Veda forms the bottom bedrock. Layered above is the Yajur Veda, detailing the strict rules and sacrifices to maintain agricultural order. The third layer, the Sama Veda, is the foundational origin of classical Indian music, providing ritual chants. Finally, the Atharva Veda drops in. Authored by Atharva Rishi, it contains 731 hymns functioning as practical spells for medicine and magic. The progression from the Rig Veda through these three subsequent texts maps a civilization evolving. They moved from a singular focus on sheer survival to the meticulous micromanagement of daily culture, early science, and structured religion. As the later Vedic period matured, its literary output expanded well beyond the four core Vedas. This matrix tracks their final structural achievements. Alongside the 4 Vedas and 6 Vedangas, they compiled 18 Puranas and 108 Upanishads. The word Upanishad literally translates to sitting near the guru. These texts moved past basic rituals into advanced philosophical discourse, asking deep questions about the nature of reality and the self. Their influence remains highly visible. India's modern national motto, Satyamev Jayate, meaning truth alone triumphs, is a direct extraction from the ancient Mundaka Upanishad. Down at the bottom of the matrix, the era synthesized its abstract thought into the 6 darshanas, or the 6 distinct orthodox schools of Indian philosophy. The first is Sankhya, an analytical school of thought founded by the sage Kapila. Next is Nyaya, the school of logic and epistemology established by Gautama. The third is Yoga, a school of physical and mental discipline formally systematized by Gitanjali. Beside it is Vaisheshika, founded by Kanada, which proposed an early form of atomic theory. The final 2 are Purva Mimamsa, founded by Jaimini to interpret the mechanics of Vedic rituals, and Uttara Mimamsa, or Vedanta, founded by Badarayana to explore the ultimate philosophical meaning behind the texts. Over 900 years, the Aryans transitioned from mobile cattle herders to settled philosophers. They forged the administrative, religious, and philosophical frameworks that continue to echo through the subcontinent today, establishing the structural foundation of classical Indian civilization.